Hi friends, this is AVG here. Welcome to my networking channel. Hope all are doing good and safe. And today let us discuss about the topic GLBP. So GLBP is a global load balancing protocol which is Cisco proprietary and it has several advantages over HSRP and VRRP. What is the main function is it performs load balancing, and let us see the advantages over HSRP and VRRP. So in case of HSRP and VRRP, only one router will be forwarding the traffic. So whenever the active goes down, the standby will take over the active role. So that is the case with HSRP, but in case of VRRP, only the master router will take over the active role. So whenever the master goes down, the backup router will take over the active role. So only a single router will be always forwarding the traffic. But in case of GLBP, all the routers will be forwarding the traffic through virtual MAC address in the ERP reply. So each and every router in GLBP will be forwarding traffic by consuming a portion of overall traffic. So that is the benefit of GLBP. So now let us discuss in detail. Before that, let us see the difference of the traffic flow between HSRP and GLBP. So in case of HSRP, the client traffic will be forwarded to the active router. So whenever the active goes down, the standby will take over the active role. So this is the case with HSRP. But in case of GLBP, each and every router will be forwarding the traffic, right? So that is the benefit of GLBP, and it performs load balancing. So this is an architecture where I connected three routers and all be having individual physical IP 10.2, 10.3 and 10.4. So all will be using a virtual IP called VIP IP. So that is 192.168.10.1. So let us see how it works. Whenever the client sent an ERP request, AVG will answer the ERP request. So let us see what is AVG and AVF. So AVG is an active virtual gateway which is selected by the router with the highest priority or the highest IP address. So whenever the client sent an ERP request, AVG will answer the ERP request. That is the first function. Second thing, the AVG assigns the virtual MAC address to the individual client in its ERP reply. So whenever the client sent an ERP request, AVG will answer the ERP request and it will assign the virtual MAC address in the ERP reply to the individual client. And the third function is AVG will assign the AVF role in its own router, right? So why it is, I will tell the difference. So whenever the primary AVF goes down, automatically the secondary AVF will take over the active role. So that is the difference. So how the AVG is selected? So AVG is selected by the router with the highest priority or the highest IP address. So whenever the AVG goes down, the secondary AVG will take over the active role. So how it is done means both AVG and the secondary AVG will be sharing hello messages periodically. So whenever this AVG goes down, the standby AVG will take over the active role. The similar way, AVF also does the same role. So whenever the primary AVF goes down, the secondary AVF will take over the active role. So this is done through exchanging hello messages periodically. So what is the difference between AVG and AVF? So AVG already told the three function, it will answer the ERP request and it will assign the virtual MAC address, and third thing, it will assign the AVF role to the another router, right? So in case this AVF goes down, the AVG can assign the AVF role to another router. But the main function of AVF only forwarding the traffic sent to the virtual MAC address to the individual client. So that is the main function of AVF. It will only does the forward traffic. So it will forward traffic to the virtual MAC address that is assigned by AVG to the individual client. So that is the difference between AVG and AVF. So now let us see the functionality. So AVG is an active virtual gateway which is selected by the router with the highest priority or the highest IP address, and AVG answers the ARP request and it will assign the virtual MAC address to the individual client, right? So the similar to HSRP, there are two AVG. One is elected as a primary and another one is elected as a standby AVG, and both will be exchanging hello messages periodically every 3 seconds. In case the standby AVG, if it does not hear any hello messages from the primary AVG, what happens? This AVG will go down and the standby AVG will take over the active role. So what about AVF? So AVF is nothing but an active virtual forwarder. So the main function is forwarding the packets sent to the virtual MAC address that has been assigned by AVG. So this main function is forwarding traffic to the individual client. That is the main function of AVF. So how the AVF failure is detected by exchanging hello messages. So similar function like AVG. So whenever the primary AVF goes down, the secondary AVF will take over the active role. So that role has been assigned by AVG, right? So whenever the primary AVF goes down, the AVG can assign the AVF role to another router. So the secondary router can take over the AVF role. I hope you understood. So now let us see what is GLBP weighting. So what is weighting? It is used to determine which router becomes the AVF for the virtual MAC address. So if you want to assign the AVF role to another router, so then I can assign this weighting function. So how it is assigned is it will assign some threshold value. So whenever the weight falls below the threshold value, the router will give up its AVF role. So what it means is, so whenever this primary AVF goes down, automatically AVG can assign the AVF role to another route. So that can be determined by the weighting value. So we can assign some value. If the weight falls below the threshold value, automatically the AVG will assign the AVF role to another router. So that has been determined by this function called weighting function. So if the weight falls below the threshold value, the router will release its AVF role and it can give the AVF role to another router. The same way, if the weight rises above the threshold, the router can resume the AVF role again. So that is the main function of weighting, GLBP weighting. So let us see the load balancing methods, how the traffic is distributed to the client. So one is round robin, in which the virtual MAC address assigned to the client in a round robin fashion. That means the first MAC address will be virtual MAC address will be assigned to the first client. Similarly, second to the second client and third to the third client, and it goes on. So it is assigned to the client in a round robin function. What is host dependent? Whenever the client, individual client want to use the same virtual MAC address, then it can go for host dependent function. And the third is weighted. So if you want some AVF to forward more traffic than the others, then you can assign them with a different weight, right? So these are the load balancing methods of GLBP. So the GLBP main function is performs load balancing through virtual MAC address assigned to the client in a round robin or host dependent or in weighted function. So now let us see the summary. GLBP is a global load balancing protocol. So AVG is elected by the router with the highest priority or the highest IP address. So AVG is an active virtual gateway which answers the ARP request and it will assign the virtual MAC address to the individual client. So and also AVG can assign the AVF role to another router. So this can be determined by weighting function. So AVF is nothing but an active virtual forwarder used for forwarding traffic to the virtual MAC address sent to the individual client. So these are the load balancing method, right? Round robin, host dependent and weighted function. I hope you understood. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe me for more videos. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.